So in the summer of 2016, I applied for a valet parking job, and after going through the whole interview process, they told me that I wouldn't get the job because of the hair that I had. And at the time, I had dreadlocks, and the only way I could get the job is if I was to go and cut them. And I didn't feel like the job was that important for me to have to go through the whole process and keep doing that. And I think that's just a very good example of how cultural norms aren't accepted into society today still. But I think as we progress as a society, you start to see more and more people that have just more culturally accepted things that they do. And you start to see more and more people that have tattoos and piercings and things like that. And I think that's just a great way to show how like inequality is still absent in the United States today in 2020. You start to see that through like criminalization, immigration, job opportunities, job income. Also see it through gender and race as well. According to Taylor Telfer of the Washington Post, the nation's median household income was only $63,000 in 2019, and the reasons for that would be because of the minimum wage being only $7.25, and also because Caucasian males mainly make up the top of the economic ladder. This creates a social structure between the citizens of the United States, and you start to see that because of bigotry that's between certain people, and you start to see people thinking that they're bigger or that they're more important than other people just because of the money that they have. And then you start to see some of these examples can be shown through like I would say like a current president today, Donald Trump. You start to see like his past and his allegations that he went through, and then you also have certain clothing companies such as like Tommy Hilfiger who says that they only want certain people wearing their clothes, and that's just not cool, and that's how you kind of lose out on money just because you only want certain people wearing your clothes. Another thing that I mentioned would be just income and job opportunities, and you start to see how like as far as gender, you start to see that women aren't being paid as much as men are, and specifically you start to look at minorities at this point, African American women, and then you have Latina women, excuse me, um, that aren't getting paid really at all. But at the same time, they're being forced to have to settle for jobs that they don't want to because they're not given as much as others are in the workplace. And according to Jamila Missioner, in her article, What does policy have to do with it? Women across all race groups earn less than men. Period. African American and Latino women earn less than Caucasian women and African and Latino men. This can lead to citizens also finding other ways to get means of income, whether it be through having multiple jobs or doing illegal activities, whatever way they can do to provide for their family. And this, and in 2020 today, you start to see how uh, I wouldn't say those, but minority groups are more susceptible to be incarcerated in prison, and they also get more time for even less serious offenses. So just say, for example, that I go to jail for doing whatever illegal activity, but in another case, somebody else just got a capital murder charge, and I get put in jail for 20 years while they only get probably 10 years and still probation. So I think that's just a great example, somewhat, but I think we've seen that enough in society uh, today, and it's been plenty of cases where we've also seen that as well. Um, neighborhood neighborhood income, and then you have neighborhood gentrification and how they get separated as well. You start to see Section 8 housing and more housing that is geared toward like minorities. They're starting to be torn down, or neighborhoods are starting to be torn down, and um, you start to see upper middle class residents start to move in. That's what is considered gentrification. And according to John Barrymore, the term Section 8 housing comes from the Housing Act of 1937, which created individual housing for families with low incomes. And some citizens are still grouped throughout the community, well, grouped in communities throughout America today. Jack LaHoying of The Scholar Strategy Network wrote gentrification as the reinvestment and renewal of previously debilitated urban neighborhoods as middle and upper class residents move in. And like I was saying, it's just pretty much just forcing minorities out just so the neighborhood can really be better in latent terms, I would say. But this creates last minute problems for families that have kids or they don't really have the means just to get up, pick their stuff up and move. And I think being in this situation before, when I was in middle school, me and my family, we were forced to move out of pretty much an apartment complex that was just being bought out by other people, and they only gave us a month to move out. So I had to find a whole new school, a whole new house, and I even missed school because I had to help move. So I think that's just another good example, and another personal example just that relating to what's going on in society today. And then we also have the legal system and immigration policies that allow for major disadvantages against minorities. A very popular saying amongst African Americans in the culture is just the most dangerous man in America is an educated man or woman, or an educated black man or woman. And examples like this would be leaders such as like Malcolm X. You have Rosa Parks. You have Martin Luther King Jr. And even though Gandhi isn't African American, he's still a minority. So, I mean, that's another one I think of, and he played a very huge role in just going about things. Well, all of them did, going about how they fought for equality in America, and they just paved the way for us just to be where we are today. Whether it's racially getting equal pay or just equal opportunities in America, you still have some people that don't get every fair chance, but it's just kind of the way life is. But just to keep going, I think that if you look back into really those three, talking about Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Gandhi, all of them were assassinated. And I think that's one common thing that hit me when I was doing my research, and I saw that I felt like they weren't really assassinated for the color of their skin, but they were assassinated for just knowing too much about the government, and they were exploiting the government as well. So just going with that, they knew what the government was trying to do, and they were trying to spread it to not their followers, but just people that will listen, so that they can get others along just to fight with them. According to Ruth Gomberg Munoz, the Hart-Celler Act, which is also known as the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, was widely considered just to be an extension of the civil rights legislation. And African Americans and Latino youth, they're more susceptible to get incarcerated today than their parents and grandparents were back before the civil rights movement. And I think that's another one that kind of hit home for me, because it just shows how, I wouldn't say prejudice, but like how stereotypical people can be. No matter what you're doing, somebody's always watching you. So you just really have to be careful and go about things the right way nowadays, because there's still people that are going to stereotype you and think you're doing something when you're not really doing something. But according to Ruth Delaney, who is the writer for the Re-Imaging Prison Web Report, 55% of people in federal or state prisons were either black or Latino, and this was in 2015. And we're considered to be in post-racial America, and if you look at that, that's still kind of stereotypical. And to me, stereotypes kind of go along with like racial profiling, and you see racial profiling go along with police brutality, which is also becoming a big thing as we're just progressing as a society. Another example of police brutality, or so to say racial profiling, would be Eric Garner, who died in 2014 at the hands of the police because he was selling cigarettes and CDs outside of a store. And he was said to be doing other illegal activities, but they never had any evidence of that. So they ended up choking him to death while like 5 or 6 police officers were on top of him. And one of my final points would be just immigration. Other than African Americans and Latinos. You have Native Americans, Chinese, and Asians who have been suppressed since the 19th century. In 1942, the U.S. and Mexico signed a treaty which is known as the Bracero Program, and it was just pretty much Mexico giving the U.S. at the time of World War II, which was around like 1942. They gave us about 5 million or so, an estimated number, but it was about 5 million just to work in fields, factories, construction sites, and that was just across the southwestern U.S. And to me, this is kind of like the slave trade agreement. That's how I kind of look at it. Just because at the time they were only taken because they needed production, but at the time it was kind of at the help for the country as well too. So I'm pretty like neutral about that. I don't know, but you see organizations such as ICE and how they deal with migrants that come in and out of the country. And ever since 2001, when 9/11 happened, you start to see a lot of things get tighter, especially like as far as immigration goes, and which the country has every right to. But I don't think that people within ICE are still going about things the right way. And you see this because it gives some bigots the platform just to remove Latinos out of the country, which you've seen all across news channels and social media. You start to see people that are in camps being treated unfairly, not given the proper necessities of life just to survive at all. And this is just pretty much not giving minorities the fair chance at life, liberty, pursuit of happiness while they're here in America. And not everybody's free, and that's just starting to be more evident as we tend to put people in office that are very ignorant, bigot. There's a lot of bigotry mixed in between there as well. But inequality can only be ignored, and pretty much if you ignore it, you're kind of ignorant. That's how I see it. But having a lack of empathy for others, whether of how they look, how they dress, the color of their skin, what they do with their hair, what gender they appeal to, I don't think you should be able to judge a person of that and just determine who they are, what they are, where they came from, and then things of that nature. But inequality is still absent in the U.S., and we see that through income gaps, job opportunities, immigration, criminalization, gender, race, and things along that nature. But this is America, and this is America as we know it. It's land of the free, but a lot of people still aren't free, nor are they getting the right opportunities they need to survive.